What's the point of all this if I don't even know who we're becoming anymore? Quinn Keller stared at the spreadsheets on his desk, his jaw tight. Sales were steady, sure, but complaints had tripled in the last 6 months across several locations. His diner chain had started from one small shop he opened with a rusted grill and a dream. Now there were 12, and somehow, between expansion and delegation, something had gone wrong. He rubbed his temples. His district manager, Theo, kept saying everything was under control, but the feedback coming in said otherwise: wrong orders, cold food, rude service. Most of it from one location, the East Side Diner. Quinn had never met most of the staff there. It was one of the newer stores, opened during the pandemic hiring spree. He hadn't had time to visit in person. He wasn't in the promotional materials, didn't show up in press. He liked it that way. His team only knew his name, not his face. So, he made a decision. He'd go in undercover. He shaved his beard, dyed his hair darker, wore fake glasses, and pulled on an old flannel with worn jeans. He looked nothing like the professionally dressed CEO on their internal documents. He'd pose as a customer, no cameras, no crew. Just him and a $20 bill in his pocket. He parked across the street from the East Side Diner at 4:15 p.m. on a cloudy Thursday. Dinner rush would start soon. The place looked clean from the outside, new signage, spotless windows. But when he stepped inside, the air felt off. A woman behind the counter, probably in her late 20s, glanced at him and sighed. "You can sit wherever." No smile, no greeting. Quinn nodded and picked a booth near the window. A few minutes passed. No menus, no water, no one came over. He watched as a teenage boy walked in, skinny, maybe 15 or 16, with a frayed backpack slung over one shoulder. He stood awkwardly near the counter. The manager, he guessed she was the manager, by the way she barked orders at the other staff, walked over. "Can I help you?" she asked, with a tone that made it clear she didn't actually want to. The boy rubbed his arm, eyes on the floor. "I was just wondering if I could maybe get something small to eat. I don't have enough for, like, a full meal, but maybe..." "You don't maybe anything here," she cut him off. "This is a business, not a soup kitchen." Quinn's stomach tightened. The boy's face dropped. "Look," she said, folding her arms. "You want a handout? Go to the shelter. We're not feeding strays." There was a long silence. The boy nodded quickly, mumbled, "Sorry," and turned to leave. Quinn stood up. "Hey, kid," he called. The teen paused. "You hungry?" The boy hesitated. "Yeah." "Come sit," Quinn said. "I got you." The boy looked unsure, but sat across from Quinn at the booth. The manager rolled her eyes. "Sir, if he can't pay..." "I said I'm paying," Quinn answered calmly. "You got a problem with that?" She didn't respond, just turned and mumbled something to another worker, who looked uncomfortable. A young waitress brunette, maybe 19, walked over with 2 menus. "Hey there," she said softly. "I'm Mila. Sorry about the wait. What can I get you both?" Quinn smiled. "What's your name again?" "Mila," she repeated. "I'm new. Been here about 3 weeks." "You're doing a good job, Mila," Quinn said. Her face lit up like she hadn't heard that in a long time. "Thank you." They ordered burgers, fries, and sodas. Mila brought them fast, checked in twice, even snuck the teen an apple pie on the house. Quinn watched the boy melt into a real smile as he ate. He hadn't seen that kind of gratitude in years. The manager hadn't come by once. After the boy left, thanking Quinn and Mila both, Quinn stayed behind. He waited until the dinner rush was over. Then he stood and walked to the counter. The manager was scrolling on her phone, leaning against the drink machine. "You the manager?" he asked. She didn't look up. "Yeah." He pulled out his wallet, laid a black company card on the counter and said, "Then you might want to listen closely." She glanced at the card, then at him, confused. "I'm Quinn Keller," he said. "I own this place." She laughed once, thinking it was a joke. Then her face changed. Mila, who'd just finished wiping down a table, froze. The manager's voice went flat. "Wait. What?" "I built this company myself," he said, voice steady. "And what I saw here tonight, it's everything I never wanted this place to become." The diner went silent. The manager blinked twice, as if the name hadn't registered. When it did, her mouth parted slightly, but no words came. Behind her, the kitchen door swung open, and a cook leaned out, wiping his hands on a towel. He stopped short when he caught the tension in the room. "You're the owner?" the manager finally said, voice quiet. Quinn didn't nod. He let the silence confirm it. Mila stood a few paces away, eyes wide. She clutched an empty tray against her chest like a shield. "Let's talk," Quinn said. The manager straightened, her tone shifting into something vaguely polished. "Of course, absolutely. We can head to the office?" "No, right here." His voice was even, but there was no mistaking the edge beneath it. "Let's not pretend this place doesn't already know how you talk in public." Her eyes darted around. A busboy froze mid-step near the soda fountain. The cook stepped back into the kitchen without a word. Quinn kept his focus on her. "What's your name?" "Dana," she swallowed. "Dana Hayes." "How long have you been managing this location?" "About 8 months." "In that time," Quinn said, "have you ever had someone come in asking for food and turn them away like that?" She hesitated too long. Well, we get people like that fairly often in this part of town. You have to draw the line somewhere." "No," Quinn said, cutting her off. "You don't get to talk about people like that. He was a kid, hungry, and you humiliated him." Dana's posture stiffened. "I was enforcing policy." "There is no policy that tells you to shame a teenager in front of a full room," he said. "I've never written one. I've never approved one. And if anyone in leadership told you that was acceptable, I want their name." She didn't answer. "How many other people have you treated like that?" he asked, louder now. "How many times have you turned someone away because they didn't look like they belonged?" Her lips pressed into a tight line. "I do my job." "No," he said, voice low now, but firm. "You do something else, and it's not welcome in my business." He turned slightly toward the rest of the diner. "Mila," he said, not raising his voice, but enough for her to hear. "Can you come over?" She walked up slowly, still clutching the tray. Her expression flickered between nervous and confused. "You've been here 3 weeks, right?" She nodded. "How's it been?" She glanced at Dana, then back at Quinn. "Honestly, I want honest. There's a lot of tension," she said carefully. "And most of us walk on eggshells. If you make a mistake, you get called out in front of customers. Sometimes people cry in the walk-in just to get through their shift." Quinn's jaw set. "Has Dana done that to you?" "Not yet." She paused. "But I've seen her do it to others." "I'm going to ask you one more thing," he said. "If you're not comfortable answering, you don't have to. Has anyone ever reported it?" Mila hesitated. "A few people tried. But the messages either got ignored or they were told to toughen up when they followed up." Quinn turned back to Dana. "Who's your direct supervisor?" "Theo, district manager." He nodded. "I'll be speaking with him?" Dana's voice sharpened. "You're taking her word over mine?" "I'm taking the word of a team member who's been here less than a month and already sees what's wrong," he said. "I don't need a full investigation to know when someone's poisoning a workplace." Dana's face tightened. "So what now?" "You're done here, right now." He pulled his phone from his pocket, tapped out a quick message. "You can gather your things. I'll have HR send your final paperwork." She scoffed quietly but didn't argue. Her eyes flicked toward the kitchen. "Figures," she muttered, and walked toward the office, stiff-legged. Quinn turned to Mila. "I need to speak with the rest of the staff. Can you ask them to come out if they're not in the middle of something critical?" She nodded and disappeared behind the swinging kitchen door. Within a few minutes, 5 employees emerged, 2 cooks, a dishwasher, and a server in his 40s with a limp. They stood in a loose semicircle near the counter. Quinn introduced himself again, this time more calmly. No one spoke for several seconds. The older server, name tag reading Carlos, cleared his throat. "So, you're really him?" "I am," Quinn said, "and I had no idea things had gotten this bad." Carlos nodded slowly. "We've tried to keep this place running, but it hasn't been easy." "How many people are on staff total?" Quinn asked. 7 now, 8 with Dana, but we've been short for weeks." "Why?" Carlos shrugged. "People quit, some after only a few days. Word gets around fast." One of the cooks, a tall man with sleeves rolled to his elbows, spoke next. "I've been here longer than anyone. I've asked for a second-line cook for months. Last week, I worked a double shift 4 days in a row. No backup, no support. But Dana always blamed us for being slow. Quinn's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes hardened. Did Theo ever visit? He asked. Carlos nodded. Twice. Dana always prepped us before he came. Told us to smile, not mention scheduling, and don't embarrass the store. Quinn folded his arms. Did he ever sit down and talk to any of you one-on-one? No one answered. That was enough. I'm not expecting miracles from anyone, he said, but no one should have to survive a job. You should be able to do your work, be treated with respect, and go home with your dignity. He took a slow breath. I'm going to be staying in town for a while. I'll be here during shifts, not as the owner, just someone helping out. I want to see firsthand what's needed. Mila looked surprised. You're going to work here? I can't fix what I don't understand, he said, and I trusted the wrong people to tell me the truth. One of the younger cooks cracked a knuckle. What about Dana's replacement? I'll bring in a temporary manager from another location tomorrow, Quinn said. Someone I trust, but long term, I want to find someone here who's ready to grow into that role. Someone who understands what this place needs, not just how to meet the numbers. Carlos exhaled, like he hadn't taken a full breath in days. Quinn looked around the room. I need your help to turn this around, and I'm not here to watch from a distance anymore. He reached into his wallet, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to Carlos. My personal contact. If anything feels off again, you reach out. No middlemen. Carlos took it, nodding slowly. Quinn turned toward the kitchen. I'll start washing dishes if someone shows me how to run that machine. The dishwasher, a short woman with thick braids tucked under a cap, raised an eyebrow. You serious? I don't ask others to do work I wouldn't do myself. The room stayed quiet for a second longer, then she cracked a smile. All right, boss, let's see if you can handle the steam. As the team dispersed back to their stations, something subtle shifted. No one cheered, no one clapped. But the silence was different, lighter, like a storm had passed and the air had cleared just a little. And for the first time in months, the East Side Diner didn't feel like it was holding its breath. By Saturday morning, Quinn was back at the East Side Diner, but not through the front door. He entered from the rear, carrying 2 cartons of eggs and a box of replacement light bulbs. No one recognized him at first. He wore the same flannel from Thursday, sleeves rolled, dish towel tucked into his belt. The air inside was thick with the scent of bacon grease and burnt toast. The fryer hissed in short bursts behind the kitchen wall, and the low murmur of early diners filtered through the service window. Dwight, the cook with the rolled sleeves, looked up from the grill. You're here early. Quinn set the boxes down beside the walk-in cooler. Told you I'd pull my weight. Dwight wiped his hands on his apron. Didn't think you meant it. Mila passed by with a tray of coffee cups. He made it before me. That's saying something. Quinn smiled faintly. What's the worst shift of the week? Dwight didn't hesitate. Sunday brunch. We get slammed by 9 and don't breathe until 2. Then I'll be here at 8. He walked over to the dish station where Shonda, the dishwasher, was loading plates. She gave him a sideways glance. You sure you're not going to regret this halfway through a rush? Only one way to find out? Before the breakfast rush could fully hit, Quinn pulled Carlos aside. The man moved slower than the others, favoring his right leg. Up close, Quinn noticed the faded scar near his knee, and the way he adjusted his stance every few minutes. How long have you been doing server work? Quinn asked as they stood near the supply closet. Carlos scratched his chin. Nearly 20 years. Been here since the 2nd month after opening. Ever worked management? He shook his head. Never asked. Wasn't sure they'd look past the limp. Who told you that mattered? No one had to. Quinn didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened the closet, pulled out a clipboard with shift schedules, and handed it over. Take a look. You good with numbers? Carlos raised an eyebrow. I can count tips in my sleep. Then start thinking of ways to tighten up the midweek shifts, Quinn said. You've got the most experience here. I want your input. Carlos studied him. You testing me? No, I'm seeing what happens when someone's finally given the chance to lead. Carlos didn't respond. But there was something steadier in the way he walked back to the floor. By mid-morning, the diner filled quickly. A family of 6 squeezed into a corner booth. A group of construction workers rolled in, still in reflective vests. Quinn was moving between the server line and dish pit when he heard a voice at the front. You serious? This place looks like it's being held together with duct tape. The words hung in the air, loud enough that a few heads turned. Quinn glanced over. A man in his mid-30s stood near the counter, arms crossed, expensive sunglasses pushed up on his head. Behind him, a woman scrolled on her phone without looking up. Both were dressed like they'd stepped out of a catalog, clean, pressed, expensive. Mila approached them with a menu in hand. "Welcome in. Table for two?" The man looked her up and down. "Do we seat ourselves or what? Looks like nobody's running the place." Quinn watched from the side, saying nothing yet. Mila stayed calm. "We've got seating on the left side. I can wipe down that corner booth for you." The woman finally looked up. "No thanks. That one's next to the kitchen. Smells like oil." Mila blinked. "We can move you to the window if you'd prefer." The man muttered something under his breath that Quinn couldn't catch, but it made Mila's shoulders tense. Quinn stepped forward. "Any reason you're raising your voice at my staff?" The man turned to him. "Who are you?" "I'm someone who expects guests to treat workers with some dignity." The man scoffed. "It's called customer service. Maybe if you train them better, you wouldn't get attitude." Mila kept her eyes lowered, jaw tight. Quinn's voice sharpened. "She offered you a seat. You insulted her and the space. You don't want to eat here, that's fine. But you don't get to disrespect people doing their jobs." The woman stepped back. "We'll go somewhere else." "Good idea," Quinn said. They left without another word. Mila exhaled slowly. "You all right?" Quinn asked. She nodded, but her voice was quieter than usual. It's not the first time. He didn't push. Instead, he stepped back into the kitchen and found Dwight. "You ever hear anything about customers talking down to the staff?" Dwight flipped a pancake. "Happens more than it should, especially to the younger ones, or the ones with accents." "Anyone ever report it?" Dwight shook his head. "We were told not to start problems. Just keep it moving." Quinn's jaw clenched. That changes now. By early afternoon, Theo finally arrived. He walked in wearing a pressed shirt with the company logo and a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. When he spotted Quinn behind the counter, washing down trays, the smile vanished. "You didn't tell me you were coming," Theo said, approaching him. "I didn't need to," Quinn replied without looking up. "We need to talk. Office. Now." Inside the cramped back office, Quinn shut the door behind them. "You vouched for Dana." Theo straightened. She had numbers, best cost to labor ratio in the region. Low turnover. Low because people quit before they even hit payroll. Quinn leaned against the desk. "You ever check the exit interviews?" Theo hesitated. "I glanced at a few." "Then you saw the complaints, the ones about public humiliation, retaliation, and a toxic culture." Theo shifted in place. "Look, some of those were exaggerated. You know how people get when they don't get the shifts they want. You ever talk to them, face to face?" "I figured that was the GM's job." Quinn's voice dropped. "You were paid to lead, not to hide behind spreadsheets." Theo's tone turned defensive. "I made sure she hit targets. This location was profitable." "At what cost?" "That's how the business works. You want loyalty from hourly workers, you'll go broke." Quinn stared at him for a long moment. "You're done." Theo blinked. "What?" "You're not just off this location. You're out of the company." Theo's mouth opened, but no words came. "I trusted you with people. You turned them into liabilities. I won't keep anyone around who thinks that's how we do business." Outside, the lunch rush had eased. Quinn stepped back onto the floor as Theo left through the side exit, face pale. Carlos spotted him from across the room. "Everything all right?" "Better now," Quinn said. He walked over to the register where Mila was printing a receipt. "Take a break. You've earned it." She looked surprised. "There's still cleanup. I'll cover it." He turned to Shonda. "Same for you. As soon as the next load's done, go catch your breath." She nodded, wiping sweat from her brow. That's the first time anyone said that in months. Quinn glanced around the diner plates stacked, voices calm, no tension in the air. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't fixed, but it was finally moving in the right direction. It was just past 7 on Monday morning when Quinn unlocked the East Side Diner's front door. He paused as the hinges gave a soft creak, the early light spilling across the checkered floor. The booths were still empty, the chairs stacked, the smell of lemon cleaner faint in the air. The only sound was the low hum of the fridge units in the kitchen. He flipped the lights on and walked behind the counter. The register had been left tidy. The prep list Carlos had drafted sat neatly beside it, with times and initials penciled in. Quinn ran a hand down the paper, nodding once. It wasn't perfect, but it was the first time in months the location had opened with a plan. By 8, Shonda had arrived, hair tied into a tight bun, apron already on. She moved past him with a quick nod and started unpacking the delivery crates without a word. Dwight came in shortly after, sleeves rolled, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hand. "You sleep at all?" Quinn asked him. "Few hours. I'm used to less." "We'll fix that," Quinn said. "But not overnight." Dwight pulled on his gloves and headed for the grill. One step at a time. Mila showed up a few minutes later, her expression focused, not tense. She tied her apron in the back room, then came out and glanced around. "I checked the bathrooms, all stocked. Floors are clean," she said. "Thanks. You good for the morning shift?" She nodded. "I've got class at 4, so I'll wrap by 3. Quinn looked up. "You're in school?" "Community college, hospitality program." "I didn't know that." "Most people don't ask." He nodded once. "Consider this the first of many times I will." Just after 9, Carlos walked in, wearing a clean button-down and a notepad in his back pocket. He looked different, more alert, more grounded. The limp was still there, but he moved with steady purpose. He stepped behind the counter and gave a quick glance to the schedule posted on the wall. "I adjusted the midday coverage," he said. "We're not fully staffed, but I move breaks around to keep someone on the floor at all times." Quinn gave him a brief smile. "Looks solid." They opened to a slow trickle of regulars, 2 older men who always sat by the window, a nurse from the urgent care across the street, a delivery driver who ordered the same breakfast sandwich every time. No one asked questions. The regulars noticed Quinn behind the counter, but no one recognized him. He preferred it that way. By 10:30, the pace picked up. Orders came in steadily. Dwight's rhythm behind the line was sharp but manageable. Shonda handled the dish rotation without a word of complaint, stacking plates and moving trays with practiced efficiency. Mila floated between tables, calm and quick. Carlos jumped in when the register needed coverage, logging orders without missing a beat. Quinn worked beside them, filling water pitchers, clearing plates, checking on customers. He didn't give instructions unless someone asked. He just stayed present. At 11:15, a woman in a faded green parka came in. Her hands were chapped, and she clutched a reusable shopping bag against her chest. Mila approached her gently. "Table for one?" The woman hesitated. "Actually, I was wondering if you had anything small. I'm short a few bucks, but I can pay something." Without waiting, Mila turned slightly. "Give me 1 second." She walked back to the counter, quietly pulled a few singles from her own tip jar, and tucked them into the register. Quinn saw it. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "I know," she replied, "but I wanted to." He didn't respond, just gave a slight nod. The woman was seated, given a warm meal with no other questions asked. She left quietly half an hour later, her eyes damp. At 12:40, as the lunch rush began, Quinn excused himself and stepped into the back office. There was one call he still hadn't made. He dialed the regional HR contact and waited as the line rang twice. "Susan," he said when she picked up, "I need a report pulled. All complaints logged from the East Side location over the past year. I want dates, summaries, and who they were routed to." Susan hesitated. "Is this related to the incident you mentioned last week?" "It's related to everything," Quinn said, "and I'll need the same for any location managed by Theo." "Understood. I'll prioritize it." He hung up and stared at the filing cabinet in the corner. Dust had gathered on the top drawer. No wonder no one had felt heard. The systems were in place, but no one had been watching. Back on the floor, Carlos flagged him down. "Quick thing," Carlos said quietly. "One of the newer hires, Julian, he called in. Said he was feeling pressure from his second job to pick up more hours. He's thinking of quitting here. Have you talked to him directly?" "Just for a minute. He seems stressed." "Set up a time to sit with him," Quinn said. "Let him know we'll work around what we can, but I don't want him burning out. No job should cost someone their health." Carlos nodded. "I'll check in later today." By 2, the final tables from the lunch crowd were clearing. Mila helped a mother with 2 toddlers gather their things. Shonda wiped down the booths, her pace slower now, but steady. Dwight leaned against the prep table, sipping water. Quinn called everyone together at the front. "I want to say something before everyone heads out," he said, voice low but clear. They gathered near the counter, forming a loose semicircle. "I came here thinking I'd find a few problems to fix. I didn't expect to see how hard you've all been working just to hold this place together. You've done it without recognition, without support, and in some cases under leadership that didn't care. No one spoke, they just listened. That ends now. We'll be hiring more support. I'm bringing in someone from the operations team to help with recruiting and retention. Carlos will be stepping into an assistant manager role. He'll help lead from inside, not from above." Carlos blinked. "You're serious?" "You've earned it," Quinn said, "and I trust you to shape this place into something better." Carlos nodded slowly, no smile, just a quiet acceptance. "I'm also working with HR to reopen past complaint reviews. If anyone here has felt ignored, unseen, or pushed aside, we'll revisit it. This isn't about damage control. It's about rebuilding trust." Shonda crossed her arms, eyes steady. "What about the others, the ones who left? If they're willing to speak, we'll listen. Some might want to come back. If they do, I want this place to be worth returning to." Dwight glanced toward the kitchen. "You really staying involved?" "As long as it takes." Mila looked up. "What happens when you leave?" "When I do," Quinn said, "you won't be alone. The right people will be in the right roles, and if anything changes again, you've got my number." No one clapped, no one cheered, but the silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was full. They returned to their stations. Mila clocked out first, waving goodbye with a tired grin. Dwight stayed behind to help Shonda finish the last of the dishes. Carlos adjusted the schedule for the next day, tapping a pen against his notebook in thought. Quinn stepped outside and watched the street for a moment. The sky was clear now. The cold had softened. He hadn't fixed everything. He hadn't expected to. But for the first time in a long while, the East Side Diner wasn't just surviving. It was starting to heal.